There are no two bullet journals alike, not even if they're made by the same person. It's something that's going to be as unique as yourself, so remember that if you ever get lost or overwhelmed with inspiration. This month's going to be the start of a new chapter in my life, so I'm going to be setting up my bullet journal to keep me company, and I wanted to take you through that process with me so that we can plan together. I actually filmed this video throughout the course of a whole week because I wanted to make sure that anytime I got an idea, I would sit down and film it for you so that you get to see the whole setup at the end. I personally use a Discbound notebook, but if you have a regular one, don't worry because I'm gonna have tips about how you can adapt everything that I use. Alright, first let's get the cover page out of the way. And yeah, that is in fact a donut cutter. You can of course do whatever you want on the first page. I know it can be quite daunting to start writing in a new notebook, but for me this just kind of gets the creative juices flowing. I had a feeling I didn't want to use too many colors throughout this whole setup because I knew I was going to use it for the rest of the year, so I just wanted it to go with any seasons and stuff, so I actually decided to go all black and white, which is very unusual for me. But I was really inspired by this drawing I saw on Instagram, and I just fell in love with the simplicity and elegance of it, so I decided to create something similar. To me, this drawing represents life, its ups and downs, going with the flow, and of course how there are dark sides of life, but there's also light inside of it, and there's beauty that's represented by the flowers. And at the bottom I wrote MyLifeinaBullet because that's my username, but that's kind of what this notebook is, right? So overall I really like the way this turned out and the meaning behind it, but just remember that you can do whatever you want on the first page. Just make it something that inspires you. So now let's talk about the process I went through before setting everything up. The very first thing I did was to just sit down, get a piece of paper, and I just started writing down ideas for spreads and how I wanted to section off my notebook. I also went through my previous bullet journals and decided what stays, what goes, what I want to change and stuff like that. But if this is your very first one, then I really suggest looking into the original bullet journal system before looking for inspiration anywhere else. And don't worry if this looks a little overwhelming because I'm going to explain everything, and I'm also going to have a flip through at the end, and that'll hopefully make more sense. Now that I knew how many sections I was gonna have, I wanted to create some dividers and some stickers to use throughout my notebook. So I literally spent a good few hours on GRAPHICSTOCK just getting inspiration, and I downloaded a bunch of pictures that I thought would fit my setup. The awesome thing about GRAPHICSTOCK is that you have unlimited downloads to their huge library of vectors, pictures, illustrations, and all of them are 100% royalty free so that you can create stickers, printables, or you can use them in any of your projects as well. And the pictures are yours to keep forever, and you won't have to worry about copyright or anything like that if you want to sell your work. So GRAPHICSTOCK partnered with me on this video, and they're giving you guys a 7-day free trial so that you can get access to their library. So I'm gonna link all the pictures I used for this video so that you can go check them out if you want to use them as well. So for the dividers, I found this really cool wavy type of pattern that also matched the cover page, so I just printed them out and laminated them. I don't think it would be as practical to create sections in a regular notebook because that's what the index is for, but I personally like having everything organized like this. It just makes more sense in my head, and I also don't have to flip through the pages too much to get to where I want. I also created some tabs to have quick access, and I laminated these as well, but only on the top side so that I would be able to fold them in half. If anyone's interested in step-by-step instructions on how I made the dividers and these tabs, let me know because I already have the footage, but I just didn't want to make this video too long. You could also make these for regular notebooks as well. I think it looks really nice and clean, and they're also really durable so that you can still carry your notebook around, and maybe you can just add them after you finish setting everything up. So now that everything is sectioned off, I am going to take all those ideas that I brainstormed earlier and write them all on sticky notes. This is going to be especially helpful if you use a regular notebook, because this way you can stick them on the pages and play around with where you want everything to go and figure out which order makes more sense to you. And if you don't have the time to set everything up in one session, but you really want to get to the actual planning, then this is a good way to reserve those pages for later and you won't forget what goes where. Alright, so at this point I was finally ready to get into the actual setup. Usually with a bullet journal, you'd want to start with an index and a key. I'm personally skipping those because I've never used them, so my very first spread is going to be a future log, and I'm going to be setting this up for July until December. I'm going in with pencil first just to know when the month starts and ends, so that I don't make any mistakes when I go in with my fineliner. The future log is basically a calendar overview of all your events, birthdays, holidays, and whatever else is important to you. A lot of people ask if it's too late to start a bullet journal or if you have to wait until the beginning of the year, and the answer is absolutely not. As you can see, I'm setting mine up starting July. It just so happens that it's the whole second half of the year, but it really doesn't matter when you start. You could even do it on December 31st if you want. Now I just played around with the stickers I had made from GRAPHICSTOCK, and I decided to use them as headers. I just thought they looked really nice without being distracting. And that's actually it for this spread. Super simple, but I knew it was going to be a long planning session, so I just needed to contain myself. The following page is for keeping track of emails that I have to write or reply to, and this might not apply to a lot of people, but if you also write or receive a lot of emails, then you might find this helpful as well. So after that, this is where the rest of my monthly and weekly setups are going to go. They're the ones you've seen in my previous videos, but if you're using a regular notebook, then you can just go ahead and continue with the rest of the spreads you want to do before that. Moving on to the social media section, the very first page is going to be very simple, just for the milestones that we get to, and if you have any social media accounts, you probably know how nice it is to have something like this. You might remember from my previous videos that I've been tracking my social media stats every single month for a long time now, and I wanted to continue that, but I really wanted to have them all together. So I'm creating the spreads for all 6 months, and this is basically where at the end of each month I just fill in the stats for Instagram, YouTube, my blog, and so on. And for this whole bullet journal setup, you'll see throughout the video that I'm basically asking myself, what do I want to see at the end of the year? Like, what do I want to have an overview of? Because when you do your monthly setups, you obviously probably have a lot of things in there. So at the end of the year, if you want to check your progress on, let's say, any specific habits or stuff like that, then you have to flip through and search for all those pages individually. But this way you kind of have the whole year or half a year at a glance, if that makes sense. This spread is going to be very simple. Again, it's where I'm going to write down ideas for videos and blog posts, and you'll see at the end that I also added some checkboxes just to keep everything nice and organized. If you're curious about the pens I'm using, then definitely check out the description box because I always link everything there. I'm also doing a what is called social media cheat sheet. This is just a list of all the picture sizes for different social media platforms, and I especially use this for knowing the sizes and ratios for Pinterest and especially for my blog and stuff like that. I found this list on Pinterest, so if you want to copy this in your notebook as well, I will have a link down below. So now we're moving on to the personal part of the notebook, and for this particular divider I did something a little bit different. So for this one I only glued the pages at the outer edges, and then I cut off the laminate right on the side where the discs go so that you can take it apart, and this kind of created a secret pocket. I did this because inside I wanted to put a piece of paper with my accounts and passwords, and no one will know except for the whole internet, but at least this way they'll be hidden and no one can peek. Regardless, if you do this, I still suggest that you don't write like your whole passwords, just something to make sure you remember them. So the first actual page in here is for keeping information that I don't want to forget. For example, I used to move a lot, and so here I would write down my addresses and postal codes and stuff like that. And just as I was talking about moving a lot, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably know I'll be moving to London soon. So I wanted to create a spread where I could write down everything related to the move and all that information. And oh, let me know if you get the reference in the title. At the bottom of the page, I pasted a really cool illustration of Tower Bridge I found on GRAPHICSTOCK as well, and I decided to leave the other page completely blank in case I needed that space. Next, I'm doing a page for all the orders and packages I'm waiting on. I used to include this in my monthly setup, but I think having one dedicated page for it will be more useful. The other side is for my wish list, very minimal, and then we are moving on to the health trackers. The first thing I'm setting up here is a weight tracker, and I really enjoyed using this in my previous bullet journals as well, so I'm going to continue to use it. Basically, the y-axis is the weight, and then the x-axis is the week numbers. So I basically track my weight once a week, and at the end of the year, this graph is going to bring you either tears of joy or sadness. On the other side, I'm again setting up an overview of 2 habits that I like to see filled in at the end of the year, which are eating healthy and exercising. I also track both of these in my monthly trackers, but again, I just wanted to have an overview at the end of the year. And by the way, you've never tested your patience until you draw the dot grid. The next spread is for writing down a bunch of things that I'd like to check out, so any movies that I'd like to watch, books I want to read, websites, anything like that. I'm also creating a page to help me save up for certain things that I want or need, and I'm going to fill in 1 square for every $100 that I save for that specific thing. So I'm just drawing in how many squares I'm going to need for each of these, and when the time will come to fill those in, I will use my erasable friction pen because, you know, realistically I might need to erase some of them if I end up using the money for something else. I mean, hopefully not, but still. This spread is a type of bucket list sort of thing where I want to write down the places I want to visit, and then the other page is kind of like for things that I want to do one day. And again, I pasted an illustration that I found on GRAPHICSTOCK, and I just really like the way this whole spread turned out. I think I'm really going to enjoy using it, and hopefully I'll get to cross things off my list one day. The last page in this personal section is for, you know, those things that you rarely use that you put in certain places of the house thinking you'll remember, and then right when you need them, you can't find them. So this spread is hopefully going to be a second chance to finding them if I remember to keep up with it, of course. I'll be keeping the brain dump section quite simple because I know that's the one that gets messy really fast. So for now, I just created this page where I'm going to write down tasks that take about 10 minutes so that when I want to feel productive and have the time to spare, I can just pick something from that list. And if you want to keep yourself motivated, you can always come up with some reward for yourself as you check things off. Then I'm actually making kind of like a boredom buster type section. I'm keeping it short, but I just pasted some Sudoku puzzles. I love doing them when I'm bored or when I have to wait somewhere, so you can use this idea for anything similar that you enjoy doing. And of course, you don't have to use up precious blank pages. You can put them inside the back pocket if you have it. But this is also a great idea to paste on top of any spreads that you might have messed up or something like that. You guys know how much I love to journal. I basically just write 4 or 5 sentences about what happened each day, and I used to include this in my monthly setup until now, but I thought it would be nicer to have all my journaling in one place, so that's why I created this section. But at the very beginning, I wanted to add this printable I made. It's inspired by the idea of Year in Pixels from Passion Carnets on Instagram. And it's basically where you assign a color to different moods and you fill one section according to how you felt each day. I've been doing this since the beginning of the year in my old bullet journal, which was a different size, so that's why I made a new one now. But you can start one at any time. So finally, I decided I also wanted to have a section for drawing and sketching, and so at the very end of the notebook, I wanted to swatch all my supplies so that I could have an overview of all my markers and fine liners and so on. If you want to see my whole pen collection, I do have a video on that. I talk in a lot more detail about all of these there, so go check it out if you haven't already, but I'll also link everything in this video as well. Normally you'd want to do this kind of pen test before anything else so that you test the paper of your notebook and see if any of your pens bleed through and how much they ghost, but this is also going to be helpful when choosing colors for your spreads. I also did swatch pages for my washi tapes because, you know, a lot of times washi tape kind of looks different on paper because it might be see-through or something, and yeah, with that we are actually done. Well, almost done. Because this whole setup would take a little bit of getting used to, I actually made a card that I called Daily Don't Forget, and I'm just flipping through the notebook to write down a list of the spreads that I have to check or fill in every single day so that I kind of get into the habit. And then on the other side of the card, I did the same thing but for the stuff that I have to fill in on a monthly basis. And the cool thing about this little card is that I can take it out and have it on my desk as I go through the spreads every day, and I don't have to flip back and forth to have as reference. You can also put this in the back pocket of your notebook, or you can washi tape it to the sides so that you can flip it out when you need it. Alright, finally here's a flip through of the whole setup. You can tell I wanted to keep it really simple. I didn't go crazy with decorations or colors. I might add some things in the future, but you can of course adapt everything to your liking. Now this might seem like a lot of things to keep up with for some people, especially if you're just getting into the bullet journal, in which case I recommend starting off slowly, but it works for me and all that matters is what works for you. But don't expect your first bullet journal to be perfect because you're most likely gonna have spreads that you won't keep up with or that you don't find useful anymore, and you know what, that's the whole point, trial and error. Just don't make it so that it becomes a chore to keep up with it. I really think that ruins its whole purpose. Some of you have asked me how I stay motivated to use my bullet journal every day, and the answer is really simple. It's because I need to use it because it helps me. So if you find that you don't have the motivation for it, then maybe you just haven't found what works for you yet. So don't get discouraged and just remember to take it slowly. Alright guys, I really hope you got some ideas from this video or that it was helpful in any way, and if you want me to make separate videos about anything you saw in here, please let me know. So if you did enjoy this video, you know what to do, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!